You're listening to Permission to Heal, proudly brought to you by Alli Therapy, where brave human stories around mental health meet expert insight. And I'm Kelly, your host and registered psychotherapist at Alli. Join us in a space to speak freely, connect deeply, and heal in community. Now, it's time to dig deeper with Hastee, a fellow psychotherapist who is going to share with us a journey of immigration, trauma, depression, and her experience with therapy and how transformative it's been for her getting to where she is today. I want to give a gentle trigger warning as we will be discussing suicide. So if this is not supportive for your journey, please skip this episode. You have some stories to tell us around immigration, around acculturation, around some pretty serious mental health, and now, making it through your own healing journey, through therapy, and coming out the other side as a psychotherapist.
Absolutely, yes.
So, Hastee, tell me where your story all begins. Let's start at the beginning.
I guess it begins really as as ironic as it sounds with my birth.
Yeah.
I was born in Mumbai, India, to a Canadian mother, and we lived in the United Arab Emirates, the UAE, for a brief period of time.
Okay.
And so we had to fly back after my birth. She came home for my birth, and we had to fly back. And so I was given a Canadian citizenship. I inherited a Canadian citizenship, but I didn't actually make it to Canada until I was 12 years old.
Okay. So what was that initial, I guess, first 12 years of your life like growing up in Mumbai? Is that where you grew up?
I grew up in Gujarat, a
Okay.
state of India, separate state of India. It's actually just below Mumbai. And so that's where I lived. So for the first 4 years of my life, I lived in the UAE. Moved to India. My family moved to India when I was 4, and so we lived there for about 8 years before we moved to Canada. And so that was, I will say, life. My earliest memory it's always been held traumatic kind of like undertones. Um, and so it's never been my childhood was not easy. It was
Okay.
not easy to cope with. I suffered abuse at the hands of my mother, neglect at the hands of my father, stuff like that. And so stuff we'd call ACEs in the mental health world, adverse childhood experiences. And so until I moved to Canada, that was kind of the rhythm. And I would say it kind of got worse when I came to Canada.
How so?
Moving from a completely different country, culture, people, it was so difficult to kind of fit in. I came into a very predominantly, not a very multicultural school, I would say. And so I was the lone kind of immigrant child in the school, other than the children who were put into ESL. And here was the kicker. They actually tested me for ESL, but I ended up winning the award for French later that year. English was already something I was very, very comfortable with. I did my entire education in India in English. And it's the language we spoke because we're a mixed family. So between family members, we spoke largely English because, there were other cultures in the family. And so the bullying was pretty bad.
So you're uprooting your whole life, and you said already your childhood was not a positive experience. You did experience neglect and abuse, and so you're coming to this new country, and because you're so good at English, you don't get placed with people that maybe you might relate to a little bit more than where you did get placed, and the bullying was pretty bad.
Pretty bad. There was a lot of exclusion, a lot of making fun of, a lot of picking on me. I mean, in my first week of school, you know how kids are. It was grade 7 for me, so
Yeah.
I was super excited for a new year of school.
Mhm.
Got all new clothes and stuff, and I guess 2 anecdotes, just 2 quick little things. The family we landed in Canada with, or at the place that we landed, there was a family of 4, and they were from our culture
Okay.
and similar country, that kind of similar story, kind of.
And you kind of get placed with
It was a
them?
family connection.
Sure. Okay.
So we did know them. My
Mhm.
mom used to live in Canada, and that's how she got her citizenship
Mhm.
back in the 80s. And so she was friends with these people, and these people were family friends. And so we landed in their home, in their basement. And the daughter, she was about 16 at the time, and her friends took me out for um, a little bit of back to school shopping to the mall, and we ended up, less said the better. I ended up wearing pajamas to my first day of school.
Okay.
Reindeer pajamas, to be specific.
And that was, feel like that was an intentional
Well, they took me to
mislead.
La Senza Girls, specifically a place for pajamas and little girl things.
Yeah.
And I was not aware.
No.
I had no idea where I was. I was like,
No, you trusted them.
I trusted them. And so that was one of the things. But within the first week of school, I had this new set of pens that I had bought and that my mom had bought. And, you know, of course, coming to Canada, everything was so much more expensive. And so I cherished them. And I actually witnessed this person take my pens from my box. And so in India, it's like, if you have an issue, you go to the teacher, you tell the teacher. Except I did not know snitches get stitches. And
Okay.
that was my first interaction with racism, where I was told to go back to your home, go back to your
Wow.
country, you something packy. So it was weird. I'm like, first of all, you're not right.
Mhm.
You're wrong. I'm not from
Yeah.
Pakistan.
Yeah.
I'm
Check your facts.
Yeah. And so it was like, you're wrong, but okay, is this how it's going to be?
How did your mind, your 12-year-old brain, understand what was happening?
I don't think I did for a while. I don't think I understood it for a while. Like any 12-year-old girl would, I cried about it to my mom. I went home and I cried, and, you know, I thought I was in the right. And so that's something that's, you know, maybe too early for this, but like, that's something that's carried me through a lot of my life. And the difficulties in my life is that always knowing that I'm my most authentic and
Mm.
true self.
Mhm.
And so whatever is happening, I had this awareness that it was not fair.
You held on somewhere. You had this foundation of I am enough being me. There was some kind of stability in there where you knew who you were.
I was just being who I was.
Yeah.
There was no kind of embellishment. I couldn't. I
Mhm.
actually just couldn't embellish myself.
That sounds extremely protective and a beautiful thing amongst all that injustice and really harmful things that are happening to you,
Mhm.
that you get to, on good days, come back to. At least I know there's nothing wrong with me. I haven't done anything wrong.
Right. Yes, that's very right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's just that is a really difficult place to find because it's so easy to go down the road of there must be something wrong with me. Did you sneak down that road ever?
In my teenage and adulthood years, I struggle with it in some capacity as a new psychotherapist, even today. It's not just imposter syndrome, it's years of training and abuse and neglect. And it's like years of conditioning of being told that I'm not enough. It was more the psychological abuse got worse in my teenage and adult years.
It's interesting that you use the word training in conditioning. Elaborate a little bit on what that training was like or what that would be like,
So, coming from an Indian, South Asian household, training was be the perfect woman,
which included.
be the perfect housewife.
Mm,
You're gonna learn all the things that are associated with um, housekeeping and being demure
mm-hmm,
and being quiet, sitting in the corner and being yelled at and being
mm.
beat on verbally, physically, whichever way. And that's what it meant to be trained as that. I was trained to be the perfect religious little my family was very religious. Um be the very like pious little girl.
Wow. So going more into your teenage years, you said the psychological abuse really intensified.
Yes. From things like not being so this was even earlier than that, like not being able to go to a sleepover,
Okay.
right? Not being able to being invited to the most popular girls' sleepover party and not being able to go because, hey, my mom thinks your dad's gonna molest me.
That's sure putting a fear in ya.
Yep. And it just went from there. It was like for every reason that I couldn't do something, there was a sinister
Mhm.
undertone to why I was not being able to, why I was not being allowed to do certain things.
How did this experience it sounds like a lot of this control and the psychological manipulation and abuse,
Yes.
it's coming from those parental figures, even outside of the bullying and the racism that you're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing at school.
Mm-hmm.
What was your relationship with your caregivers like amongst that?
It was very parentified. I'll use that term. I'll explain that term. It's I was the parent. I am an only child to them at least. For my father has three other children, my siblings, but for my parents, I was the only one, and I was the only one at home. I was also the only one at home, and so I was their parent at 19. Well, I started working when I was 16 and paying my way through hangouts with friends or
Mhm.
buying some new clothes for school or whatever. Started paying my way through those things at 16. And at 19, I was handling my parents' entire household income and household like expenses, budgeting.
Was that explicitly put on you? Were they asking that of you?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they had very explicitly said, they put me in a place of, again, manipulation, right? Because they put me in a place of like, you get this so much more, you're so much more. You've got such a good head on your shoulders already at
Mm.
such a young age. And, you know, they couldn't keep, they were 100K in debt. and we were about to lose our home, and they didn't know what to do. And so they involved me in the process. And while I was working full-time hours and going to school full-time,
It sounds like too much for
it
a
was.
human to bear, to carry.
It it did at one point. So losing my home, losing that home, um, was the straw on the camel's back.
What happened around that?
I was in a relationship at that time, and it was again made very toxic by one of my parents, just made very like controlling. I couldn't do things. It was I was 19, I was exploring drinking alcohol. I was labeled an alcoholic because, I spent a couple days
Yeah.
drinking and hungover after that. But I
Mhm.
lived on my own. And I did those things outside of the home. I never brought that kind of behavior to my own home.
Mhm.
And so my parents used that as a tactic to move me back home and bring the money that I was paying towards rent to their own finances.
Okay, so you had made this big step to try to gain some separation
Mm-hmm.
from them.
Mm-hmm.
And then their worry for you in this relationship where you're kind of doing typical
Teenage things.
typical teenage stuff.
Yeah.
It's framed in a way where it's we're worried about you. You need to come
Mm-hmm.
back so we can take care of you so you're safe.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really to use your income and to
They explicitly stated
oh, they
that.
did. Okay.
They were like, you're outside, you're doing bad things, you're not behaving correctly.
Mhm.
You need to come back home, and this money could be used so much more better. There could be so much better use for
Mhm.
this money in the home itself. And so there went my um, income. There went a lot of my bursaries that was
Yeah.
supposed to be for school, that was supposed to help me, not be 100K in debt myself today, pay some of my student loans off, help towards that. They never made a plan for me to go to school. So it was all OSAP, it was all loans. But the kicker was losing our home. The kicker was losing our home because when we moved into this apartment situation, as a little girl, you always think you're gonna have. I was never able to find a home, a stable home, because even the home that we lived in India, my mom had to go back and sell that home without me being able to have any awareness that I was never going to see that home again.
No closure.
No closure,
Mhm.
never any closure. And so we moved into this place, and things just got worse because my parents were fighting constantly.
I'm sure I'm going to assume it was closer
Yes,
quarters as
closer
well.
quarters as well.
Kind of a pressure cooker.
Right. And because a few months before that, I had developed very severe panic attacks. I was forced to, my parents didn't sleep in the same room as each other. And so I was forced to room with my mom.
At what age?
I was 20.
Wow. There's not many 20-year-olds that want to sleep with their
No,
mother.
no. But, it was all under this guise of worry and concern. And, to some extent, I think at 31 today, I've learned that, like, sure, they were doing their version of doing their best.
Why didn't you set a boundary or say no back then to these things that we're talking about now that were not healthy for you?
I think it was impossible at the time. It felt impossible at the time because my parents had rid me of any of my own autonomy financial, physical, kind of emotional autonomy. And I was constantly, for years through my teenage years, and through those years, I was manipulated into believing that I needed them, that I had to be there for them, or I would not be enough.
It didn't even feel like an option.
No,
Didn't even cross your mind.
no.
And for listeners out there, what would you say to someone who's maybe in a similar spot and kind of resonating with this feeling of part of me knows this isn't right, but it feels impossible to do anything else? What would you say?
I think I would tell them there's a way out. There's always a way out. And for me, my way out was therapy. But I didn't get to that until I suffered largely at my own hands.
Without going into too much detail, share this big turning point, a suicide attempt.
A suicide attempt, yes.
What led to that?
There had been one. There's this big one that's tattooed on my wrist. The date, and so before that one, there was another one in about November of 2015, and I was hospitalized for that. I faked my way out of the mental health ward, kind of thing. Just smiled my way through it. Not even fake, just smiled my way through it. And so I came out, and within, I think it was 10 days, that this big one happened,
Okay.
where I was supposed to go in for a CBT appointment with the free counseling clinic. And so I was supposed to go in for CBT for that day. And I felt good. I felt, I felt like I could handle things. I didn't have to go in for the session. I got up, told my parents, hey, you know what? I think I'm feeling optimistic about my health, about myself, about my future. And so I don't want to go for this appointment just yet. Let's hold off, and we'll circle back around to it at a later date.
Interesting.
My partner at the time didn't take so well to this news as my parents did. My parents were fine with it. They let it go, but my partner didn't take so well to it. Said he would break up with me if I didn't go to this appointment.
That's a complicated spot for
It was
you
a
to
very
be in.
complicated spot, because that's where, when it was too late for me to go to the meeting anyways. And my dad was out of the house. My mom had just, for the first time, gone back to work after my first attempt earlier that year. And my partner said, okay, I'm breaking up with you. I'm telling your parents, so just so you don't do something stupid again.
Wow.
And so I'm telling your parents, but I'm breaking up with you. This is it. This is over. This was the person I thought I'd marry.
Yeah.
In that moment, I thought, everything's over. This is it. This is, if I don't have this person, then there's no future. Because with my parents, I just couldn't. I couldn't imagine living in that home, living in that situation for one more day. And without the support, I had somehow alienated most of my friends at that point with my behavior, with my mental health. Being in the South Asian community, it's a huge stigma. So it alienated my friends from me. But losing this person felt like the last absolute
You couldn't
thing.
take
Just
you
couldn't
couldn't
take it anymore.
Yeah.
Without going into much detail, I overdosed. I will share that while my parents were out of the house, my father came home, and I hid the bottles under my pillow, just so, if anyone had ever had any questions. they would be answered. They know exactly what had happened. And so my dad came home. He checked in on me. He knew that my partner had broken up with me. So he's just checking on me. And I told him, I'm okay. I think I'm okay. I'm just going to sleep for a little bit. Before he could open the door, half an hour later, to leave for another appointment, he heard a thud from my bedroom. And it was me falling off my bed in whatever trauma my body was in, going through after that. And so I was rushed immediately to the hospital. I lost vitals on the way. I had to be resuscitated. I was in a coma, on life support for about 9 days. And unfortunately, it didn't end there because I woke up to the faces of the exact same faces that I was trying to escape.
That must have been such a painful experience on so many levels, right? Reaching a point where the only relief from your suffering that you can think of is that serious of an action. And then going through that medical trauma on your body. My understanding, I'm no expert. My understanding is you lost your vitals, you died. Being in a coma, like that's got to be some serious physical trauma. And then you wake up and it's back to your nightmare.
Yep.
From then to now, how did we get here?
Therapy.
Okay. Did you start right away? Did you want to go?
I absolutely wanted to go because I got a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder after that event. And so, I had always been very open about mental health and very aware of mental health needs. And I was always called my friend's therapist.
Well, yeah, you played that role of being parentified in your family and, not putting up a fuss.
Yep.
That's not surprising. You were the person that others went to.
Yes. And so it was always something that was an idea in my head. There was no stigma on my part. There's never any stigma on my part. And I think even that on that day, I was just scared of futility repeating itself. Potentially going to that CBT appointment that day. And I was feeling good. For after a long time, I was feeling good. And I could say to myself, hey, if I just do this, more of this and that, and I will be okay. I was saying that to myself. But the true fear was that nothing would change. I would go to that appointment and nothing would change.
And that wasn't good enough for you.
No. I couldn't imagine continuing on that path. Futile path, like I described it, it felt impossible.
So this is probably going to be a hard question, but what do you think about therapy was the most transformative for you?
I think it really just is based in, what we're taught are the 3 cornerstones of a strong therapeutic relationship, which is empathy, congruence, so meeting of minds, the meeting of ideas, and an unconditional positive regard. Someone saw me, sat in front of me and said, hey, you're gonna be okay. You're okay. Like, you're good. You're a good person. You're an intelligent person. You've got so much potential. Being told those things was transformative.
Because and correct me if I'm wrong here, probably the first time you were really hearing that.
Absolutely. There are people come and went through my life that were similar, that had similar ideas, but it was never, they always left. And so it was like, I am not enough. Of course, they thought for a while, but of course, obviously I wasn't enough because they didn't stay.
Yeah, look at the evidence.
The evidence, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was plenty of evidence. That's what it was about therapy, where I could sit in front of a person, say something, and be understood, be heard. Just not even understood, just be heard. I think I would say it saved my life that day. The
Wow.
first time I ever heard my therapist say to me, "Yes, I hear you."
Wow. It sounds so simple, right? It sounds like something that is so foundational that all humans deserve and should have. But when you don't have it, getting that first dose of it, right? It's so clear how transformative, how incredible, how needed
Absolutely.
that is for you.
Yes.
And for anyone.
For anyone. And I guess I wanted to be that person for someone like me.
Heck yeah. It's an honor.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And for listeners, we get to have a little celebration because it is Hastee's second week at her practicum. She's seeing clients already. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What's it like to be fully in this role now?
Oh, it is so rewarding. Just within, I went through about 2 years of just theoretical experience, theoretical learning, and now being in that space and, sitting in front of my computer, having built the space behind me, around me, to look and feel like a real therapist's office.
You're doing it.
I did it. I'm doing it. And that's it. It feels like it was worth it.
So our podcast is called Permission to Heal. So I'm going to ask you a question. You are going to give our listeners permission to do something, permission for something. What is it?
I think I would, if I were talking to someone like me, someone going through the similar thing as me, give them permission to believe, to hope.
That's something I love about our role as a therapist, is being able to hold on to that hope for our clients when our clients lose it. Because it's it's normal sometimes to lose touch. But I think of it as you give the hope to someone else to hold on to until you can hold on to it for yourself again.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else really important that we haven't said yet that you feel like needs to be said?
I think I would just end by saying, I would like to end by telling your listeners that there's a moment that comes when these things break, when the levee breaks, and when there's a rush, you feel this rush of emotions. You let yourself feel, you let yourself experience life. You're not scared of living. I think keep living for that moment. Keep waiting and living for that moment, because it's going to happen.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you for
sharing your
me.
story.
Thank you for having me.
This podcast is proudly brought to you by Alli Therapy, where we believe that shame shrinks when we share our stories in safe spaces, and that every Canadian should have access to affordable therapy. Join the over 38,000 Canadians who have found their perfect therapist match through our personalized matching quiz at ally.io. That's ALLI.io, because you always have permission to heal.